What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Purple People Podcast. My name is Kyle Smith, and I'm joined by Adam Carlson. How are you, sir?
I'm doing pretty good. Things are going pretty well in my world at this moment, and I'm just kind of waiting to see what comes to crash it all down.
Yeah, I have the same kind of mentality. I said it at work, at the end of the month, we send in our reports, we do everything. We had everything sent in on time. Everything was kosher. And then there was just this moment of peace and quiet. And I said, I don't know that I enjoy this. I think I need something to do.
Right.
And my coworkers were like, you should stop saying that. I get it, though. I am always the pessimist. I feel you there. But we can be optimistic because we are 1 week closer to the NFL draft, the NFL Combine, which is this past weekend. We're going to talk about some rumors with the team that are floating around. I'm going to cover my favorite prospect in the draft very briefly and just talk about the general state of the Vikings and where we are. So I'll let you lead off because I know that you write for the Viking Age. I'm going to spice it up just a little bit. Like when we normally do for the show, head on over to thevikingage.com. Our own Adam Carlson here writes for them. And I'll let you kind of lead where we start off at, man. But from the last show that we had until now, we've got the rumors about Cousins. We've retained a couple of players. Where do you want to lead off at? What's interesting to you?
Well, to me, it's kind of interesting that a lot of fans are confused about the re-signing of Nick Muse. Now, Nick Muse is a quality tight end. He's not going to open anyone's eyes and be like, wow, that guy's going to change the team. But he was an exclusive rights free agent, which when you look at exclusive rights free agents, those are guys that are either going to be cut or they're going to be extended. So the fact that he got a small extension shouldn't surprise anyone, especially with the Vikings having their tight end one being injured and might not be ready for the start of the season. And they only really got Oliver, who is ready to start. And then past that, what was the other tight end that currently is set to become a free agent?
Well, we have Johnny Munt, and then we also have Josh Oliver.
Yeah.
So for me, I don't know how you feel, but I feel like the Vikings have, as far as the tier and caliber of player, as the depth goes on, I think they have the perfect tier. I think Nick Muse is going to be the bottom of your tight end room, then Johnny Munt, then Josh Oliver, and then TJ Hawkinson. But I've seen all four of them do their job in an effective manner. Now, are they going to ask Nick Muse to go be TJ Hawkinson? No, they're not going to ask him to do that.
So do you think they're going to try to bring Munt back still?
I hope that they do. He was a pleasant addition when they added him from the Rams when Kevin O'Connell came over. I was like, who is this guy? And then I've seen him make some clutch third down plays. I've seen him get yards after the catch, albeit maybe it's only 5 to 10, but he fights for yardage. He makes good catches, good decisions. He's a good blocker. I like everything about him. And the great thing about Johnny Munt, and this is no disrespect to you, Johnny Munt, he's cheap. He's not going to cost you an arm and a leg. So I certainly hope that the Vikings keep him. I think you probably feel the same way, but
yeah. Absolutely. And with the way that the salary cap, it just keeps going up, these contracts that players are getting that aren't towards the bottom, towards the league minimum around that area, the top end players are going to get mega paid.
Yeah.
That's the way it's looking right now.
Well, this is a good transition to kind of two topics in one, but this is the hot topic that's going around right now. You said with the salary cap going up, the good players are going to get paid. I firmly believe the Vikings are going to keep Justin Jefferson, pay him $30+ million a year. And I think he deserves whatever they write him because he's been phenomenal since he's been a Viking and a pro. With that being said, the hilarious part was I've said recently on this show that I would be open to listening about trades for him because I think you would get the most capital of any Vikings player for Justin Jefferson. I think he's the best player on the team, et cetera, et cetera. This is not news, right? The Vikings vehemently said before the Combine, they said, we haven't even discussed this. They said, and this is paraphrasing, but this is pretty close. Either Kwesi or Kevin O'Connell one said, hey, look, you go to the draft to get a player like this, not to get rid of them. We found one. We'd like to keep him. So I said it on the show. I think they're going to keep him. I think the fans would be in a frenzy if he left. But this also opens the door for, number one, we're going to talk about Kirk Cousins on the show because some interesting news, rumors floating around that he may not be in Minnesota this season, and that wasn't
Right.
necessarily like shocking news. But now it's getting closer to like, oh, this may be a real thing. But the point I'm making with the JJ stuff is, if you pay Justin Jefferson $30 million+ a year, let's say he gets $30.5 million a year.
Well, Mike Evans just got his deal. And what was it? 2 years, 26 million a year, something
Yeah,
like that.
and I think we know Jefferson will get paid more than that. Shout out to Mike Evans. He's going to go to Canton someday. He's been phenomenal. But yeah, I think Justin Jefferson will demand more. He'll get paid
Yeah,
more.
Jefferson and Chase, I guess, are kind of like playing chicken here with their
Yeah,
contracts so you can get paid more. I really do believe that's what's going on.
and I don't blame. Yeah, Jamar Chase is on record for actually saying that, so it's hilarious. Good for them. I know they got a friendly competition. They're old teammates from LSU. But the point I'm making with this whole spiel is, if the Vikings are going to pay Justin Jefferson, X amount of money, a lot of the salary is going to go to him. This screams to me that they're taking a rookie quarterback this year. Now, whether it's going to be a trade up, stay at 11, trade down, whatever it might be, we'll find that out in a couple of weeks when the draft rolls around. But this, I mean, you tell me, Adam, reading the tea leaves, that tells you you're probably not going to be paying $50 million a year for Kirk to stay. Now, I'm not saying that they can't. Maybe Atlanta doesn't match
Well,
what
you're
he
already
wants.
paying 28.5 no matter what, whether you have them or not.
Sure. Maybe Atlanta matches it. Maybe they don't. Maybe they can't come to an agreement and he'll come back to the Vikings. I think Kirk, although he probably is the top quarterback free agent priority, I don't think there are a lot of people looking for him because of the number. I don't think the Achilles and the age thing is as big as everybody says. He
No.
looks fine. He'll come back. He's still got some tread on the tires left for sure. And he's looked
I
great.
think a team with money don't even care if they have to spend that much to get him, as much as they have to, because he will be a solid quarterback no matter where he goes.
Yep.
We did see Pro Football talk about how they had sources that linked a moving company to him, asking about what it would cost to move his stuff from his house from Minnesota down to Georgia. And Georgia is where his wife is from. So when you add all this together, it's kind of... Now, today I'm seeing rumors that he's already reached out to Kyle Pitts about getting the number 8. So, I mean, all the rumors are just piling up.
Right, and let's be clear from the football side of it, that division is not very good. I do give Baker Mayfield and the Bucs credit. I thought they were going to be a very mediocre team last year.
Yeah,
and they
that's really bad.
They who did they beat in the playoffs? The Eagles. So they won a playoff game. They damn near won in Detroit, going to the NFC Championship game. Very close. They're a competitive team. They're getting Mike Evans back. I suppose they will get Baker Mayfield back.
They also a franchise. Was it franchise tag or transition tag? Which one did they give Winfield Jr.?
Oh, I didn't know that he had been tagged yet.
Oh yeah, he's tagged.
Yeah, so he's going to stay, which that's a bummer. I kind of wanted to see the Vikings have some sort of chance with him, but they're smart for keeping him. He's a phenomenal.
So they don't mind throwing their money around a little bit to keep the players they know they want to keep, and they still have enough salary cap left that, as I expect them to want to bring Baker back.
Yeah.
So
I think he fits there. I think he fits well. There.
Yeah.
I think he's a slight upgrade from any kind of bridge quarterback that you might want, and he's got kind of a career resurgence. It's trending upward for him there. I think they need him, and I know that he needs them to have a job. So I like that fit.
I need just a second to talk to Vikings fans right here, though.
Okay.
Okay, so while we're talking, I want you guys to know Russell Wilson is not going to take a league minimum contract to come to Minnesota to play because he's getting paid by Denver. That's not how it works. He's going to want an actual quarterback contract worth what he believes his services are worth. He's not taking a league minimum to come here and play. Just keep that in mind when you're thinking about Russell Wilson.
I wouldn't want him on this team if he was paying to play for the Vikings. And I will eat crow. I said, and I was tricked into it. A lot of us were. When he was in his prime, the things that he did in Seattle were pretty great. He was very elusive. It reminded me of Fran Tarkenton light. Throw the ball downfield, scramble, do all the things outside of the pocket. Great athlete, good decision making. What just happened for 2 years in Denver screams that, okay, maybe you weren't the one holding up the offense. Maybe the offense was holding you, and you looked good because, hey, you had everything in place, right? I don't want the guy on my team, and I'll tell you right now, I'll put the hot take out. I think most teams in the league would rather take a rookie quarterback because of the money and try to do what they can and age and all that. He
I
might be like Bill Belichick and be out of a job this year.
until after the draft and teams get their young guys if they want their young guys, but if they miss out, they could see Russell Wilson as being like a consolation. I think that's the way
Right.
it's going to go.
I truly believe he could be like Bill Belichick and not have a job this year. If he wants to really have that kind of thing. And here's the thing. I don't like the guy. I feel like every time I see him speak at all, I feel like I want to die of cringe. I just don't believe. I don't think he's a genuine person at all. He might be a good human. I just don't believe any of the corny bullshit he says. But I'll tell you this: to defend him, I wouldn't take the league minimum either. But I
No.
just don't think with the talent of quarterback that's out there and with other options available money wise, he's going to have a rude awakening coming thinking he's going to get, 30, $40 million a year. I don't see any team that would want to do that outside of maybe who's desperate for a quarterback. The Raiders, who are way up there, like they're 13.
Yeah.
Maybe they would take a chance. But yeah, he's not going to get top 10 quarterback money. I highly doubt it.
No, I don't know where I love that Vikings fans come up with these ideas that are just so out there and being like, this is going to work. This is what's going to happen. Now,
Sure.
the shuffle at the top of the draft has been really interesting because I've seen Jaden actually jumping May in a lot of mocks.
Well, this is a great little transition too, because this is who I looked up today just to get about 30 minutes of highlights from different YouTube videos and see, like, of course, they're going to show you all the good plays. But I also listened to, I've really shifted my gears towards some of the ESPN and First Take guys. I really like Dan Orlovsky for what he does. I like Chris Sims a lot, and I like the Hasselbeck brothers. I listened to Dan Orlovsky, I believe, tell Rich Eisen about this because they are buried in the draft. Rich Eisen is buried in the draft every year. That's his baby.
I will give this advice: if you are scouting a quarterback, don't watch highlight reels. Go and watch full game videos. Those are on YouTube. You can find them. You'll see every play a quarterback makes, and it's a lot easier to take a look at the good and the bad that way.
Sure. I looked up Drake May because I'm from North Carolina, and I genuinely enjoy that part of it. This is a basketball school, but having Mac Brown reunite there from Texas and come back, it's really it was really fun to see them come back and to be competitive. You have to have a good quarterback. So I think Drake May was better the year before in 2022. But looking at their schedule last year, I got to watch them start very hot. I believe they were 7-0, 6-0 here, and then they went on a skid to where they only won 2 of their last 6 games. Some of the great ones. Watch the game against Pittsburgh. I loved every second of that game. And shout out to the receiver, Tez Walker. He had to fight to get his guy reinstated. He's going to be a great receiver in the league. He'll be a great number 2 or 3. But then, like you said, Adam, go watch some of the games where they got routed pretty good. The Virginia game was sloppy. And I remember at the end of the year, they lost to NC State by almost 20 points. I've seen these games because I like my team in person. But the thing with Drake May, before I do the positives, I 1,000,000% agree. And he didn't, listening to an NFL quarterback say this, who's now an analyst, this just shows how much smarter they are than we, the common folk, are. He said, if you draft Drake May, please have a guy who's going to Alex Smith for a year for you. And right now, it doesn't look like the Vikings are trending in that direction. And I was like, oh, well, I wonder why. And he said one word: footwork. His feet are sloppy. It's like this changes the trajectory of everything: angles, accuracy, arm strength, touch. And that's really the biggest thing. He's like, you're going to have to clean it up. And he said, the good examples that Dan Orlovsky said was Josh Allen cleaned this up, and he's phenomenal now. He's like, obviously, Patrick Mahomes was raw when he came out. He looks great now. You can do this, but I've heard this from multiple analysts now, and it seems to be the census. Like you said, Jaden Daniels won the Heisman. He's got a thin frame, and he took a lot of hits, but, man, he's the most NFL-ready quarterback. Yeah. Drake May has the perfect size you're looking for, like 6'4", like 230. He's a big guy, but he needs some development, and I don't know that that's going to be ideal. And if the Vikings did somehow He's sitting there at 5. Are you going to trade with the Chargers, beat the Giants out, and go trade up and get him? Does that mean you're going to sign a guy like Gardner Minshew to come take over for a year and let him sit? Or would the Vikings brass be like, we're throwing him into the fire immediately? I
So
don't
at the
know.
combine, we also saw JJ McCarthy. His stock has been rising as well.
Sure.
And I've heard some experts say they expect him to go as high as top 5, which would be kind of shocking. Now, I like Jaden Daniels as well, and I do see him taking, being a top 3 pick because he's got that Anthony Richardson type hype where he can make those plays and be athletic, and we saw that same kind of climb from him. Nobody really expected him to go as early as he did, and he definitely did, and it's a shame he couldn't stay healthy during his rookie year, but he's a weapon that's exciting and dangerous and interesting, and I think Jaden Daniels is going to be the same way.
The thing about Jaden Daniels, he played at LSU, and I know they have Brian Kelly now, the former Notre Dame coach. They don't have, what's his last name? Ed, the guy that won with Joe Burrow. That's hilarious. He had a great, you talk like this all the time. Great. It was a lot of fun to listen to in the interviews, but LSU runs a pro-style offense, and he's going to be ready. I don't think he slips past 3 at the absolute worst. The thing that I'm hearing that's interesting, and I know you've seen this too, Adam, just because I'm sure your Twitter and YouTube algorithm is somewhat similar, that the Giants might be on their last leg with Daniel Jones, which rightfully so. We called this 2 years ago. He's not good. If they're at 5 and Drake May hasn't been drafted and something happens where, maybe let's say the New England Patriots don't take that. Maybe they like McCarthy, or maybe they take Marvin Harrison.
Yeah.
And then it starts to shake things up. I firmly believe at 6, the New York Giants would take Drake May in a heartbeat or trade with the Chargers and move one spot up.
And we're also seeing some interesting stuff with Michael Penix Jr. and his medical stuff. Yeah. He was cleared of everything. And now everybody's kind of wondering, okay, is his health even a concern? Well, and if there's a team that kind of look past what happened, the past injuries and look towards the future, they might take a big gamble on Michael Penix Jr.
Well, the thing about Penix, too, is, like you mentioned, the top 3 quarterbacks that will go, Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Drake May, they didn't throw this weekend. They were, hey, we'll talk to you. We want to say hey to the teams and make ourselves available, but you can come to the pro day or watch the film, which I totally respect. Penix and McCarthy and Bo Nix all threw this weekend, along with other quarterbacks that aren't really highlighted and mentioned. Penix looked damn good. He was the best thrower this weekend. And, I mean, the crazy thing about him is, and we all saw it in the first playoff game, not the national championship game so much because he didn't have a great game there, but the dude can throw the ball down the field very, very well.
Yeah.
And that's good. I didn't know that he was cleared for his injuries. That's the thing that scares me off the most. Now comes into question, okay, they say he's medically clear. Is the value there at 11? Who knows? Some draft experts will tell you no.
A lot of people saw him as being a late first rounder, and now really the book is open. It's making this draft really confusing because these quarterbacks that at one point, like J.J. McCarthy, you could argue that he was a second rounder, and now we're talking top 5? What's going on? I know it's all draft hype, and that's what this time of year is about, but the fact that it's actually kind of happening is wild.
Well, and here's the thing, Adam. It's not every single year you have teams, this many teams that are quarterback searching.
You're right.
I won't say quarterback hungry because there are still options. I think it's all going to happen very quickly after the league year starts, and then maybe there will be kind of like the Bears last year. Maybe there'll be that one team weeks before that say, hey, we're trading up to 3 or 2 or whatever. But if you go down the list, the Bears are absolutely drafting Caleb Williams. I can't be convinced otherwise.
Which opens up Justin Fields is open after that.
Correct. Justin Fields will be out for trade. I think they should probably try to get him out of there sooner than later. But who's going to be in the bidding war for him? Like maybe a handful of teams? I don't know. So you have Chicago at 1, Washington at 2, New England at 3. New York is possibly in the mix at number 6. Atlanta at 8. And then the Vikings are at 11. Denver Broncos at 12. And the Oakland Raiders, or Las Vegas Raiders, are at 13. That's 8 teams within the top 13
Oh
picks.
yeah.
And potentially all of them are going to have a new quarterback from last season. There's only so many free agents and draft picks that are going to go around. This is, to your point of it's going to be interesting to see where these guys go because historically, and I don't know who posted this, but they posted the last, I don't know, top 3 round draft picks of all the quarterbacks, starting all the way back with Jameis Winston and Marcus Mariota. There's less than a handful that are studs, and most of
Oh
them
yeah.
are like career journeymen at best. And then the most recent ones, obviously, we can't fully grade yet, but there's a lot more Marcus Mariotas in the league than there are Josh Allens and Patrick Mahomes. So that scares me, but that's the price you have to pay if you're going to go draft a quarterback.
Well, the thing is too is like if Minnesota decides to move up in the draft and grab a quarterback, a lot of fans are going to be really mad at what it's going to take to move up. But these picks are going to start to be highly sought after. Teams are going to be able to be willing to give up a lot of their team's resources in order to move up. And Vikings fans have to be ready because it's not going to be like, okay, we're going to move up from 11. Now we're going to give up as a 4th rounder. Those days ain't happening.
Yes, 100% agree. And let me make an extra point on that, Adam. Let's think about what everyone is after now. Now that Tom Brady's retired, Drew Brees is gone, Aaron Rodgers at the end of his career. We're looking for the Joe Burrows, the Josh Allens, the Patrick Mahomes. Everybody wants the next Patrick Mahomes.
Oh yeah.
Let's be clear about what Patrick Mahomes is. He fell into a top 5, at minimum, a top 5 all-time coach with top 3 all-time tight end, the fastest wide receiver in the league when he was there, and he had a year to sit.
Yeah.
You can be the Chicago Bears and have the best prospect that looks like Aaron Rodgers about to
Mitchell
fall in your lap.
Trubisky.
Yeah, there you go. You can have the best prospect you've seen, in decades. But it's all about the situation.
Yeah.
And it really is. I think the Vikings are a very quarterback-friendly team. I think this coach, obviously with the recent report cards that came out, the facilities and the management are nice. I think there are good pieces here, but it really all depends. If you take a guy who didn't run a pro-style offense, and then he's got to do all these things where he's adjusting, he's got to adjust it, he's got to read the defense and say, okay, this is what they're giving me. I need to check out of this, check into that. Okay, well, that's going to certainly make his progress slower, especially if you need him to start right away. Well, what if you have a guy that's kind of fringe? Like I think about the Seattle Seahawks. They could easily be in contention for a quarterback. Geno Smith's not going to stay there forever.
Right.
What if they wanted to trade up and get someone? That would be a great for a JJ McCarthy. Let's say he falls a little bit and the Seattle says, you know what, we're going to go get our quarterback of the future and he's going to sit behind them for a year. Pretty good idea. There's a lot of pressure on these guys coming into a Washington, a Chicago, a New England. And maybe their expectation isn't to win the Super Bowl that year, but we need you to play immediately and we hope that you are as advertised. And the math and the film in the past kind of tells us it's probably not going to be it. So not everybody's going to come in and do what C.J. Stroud did last year.
Fans sitting and hoping that a quarterback is going to fall into Minnesota's lap at 11. When the top 3, it ain't going to happen.
Nope, like you said, they're going to have to pay a price and a premium to go up and get one. If I have it my way, and I'll just say this as a caveat because I think this is what's going to happen. If Kirk Cousins goes to Atlanta, the Vikings will draft a rookie quarterback. But
yeah.
I don't think that there is value for one at 11 for who is going to be available. I love the edge rusher from Florida State, and I love the edge rusher from UCLA.
Yep.
We don't know what's going to happen yet, and these questions will be answered relatively soon with the new league year coming up, but we don't know what's going to happen with Danielle Hunter or DJ Wanham. You need pressure on the edge.
Yeah.
All right, for a career season that Danielle Hunter had last year, the Vikings didn't have a lot of sacks. So that's not good. You need pressure. You need a good front seven. Just because I want to throw this out there and just speak it into existence. Christian Wilkinson may be available. God, please go get him with whatever extra money you need, if possible. But at 11, I'd like to see the Vikings take an edge rusher, a defensive tackle, or a corner, and then do the Teddy Bridgewater thing. If you're in love with J.J. McCarthy and he's there at 21, go get him. If you thought Bo Nix was worth the pick, but you didn't want to take him at 11, trade at 29 or 30 and come back and get him. Try that out, but I don't want them to reach for a quarterback just because, oh my gosh, because you could pass up on a potential blue chip player at a different position group because you went for, well, this is a necessity. Yeah, but he's not the best player available. So
Yeah, last week we did go over a lot of the team needs the Vikings have, and it is more than quarterback. Although quarterback is going to be the one that we're all just going to sit here and talk about and pound in the ground and say, oh, trade the farm, go up and get one. You can't trade the whole farm. You need at least some farm left to get what else you need.
yeah, yeah, you don't want to get rid of too many assets unless you're doing an absolute fire sale and breaking it down to build it back up. I don't think the Vikings are going to do that. I don't think the Vikings think that that's where they are as a team and a franchise. Um,
But
so
I do
far,
believe that that transition is happening at a rate that's a little slower because, as we all saw, one of the first things Queasy did when he got in was he got rid of some of the aging veterans that were on gigantic contracts. And so far, that move has looked very smart. And we just saw Eric Kendricks get released by the Chargers, which was another thing that now Minnesota's looking even smarter for moving on from him, even though they have an opening at interior linebacker. And who knows, maybe he will come back and play. But at the time, that was the right move.
certainly. I was talking to my little brother last night back in Carolina. And one of his partners at work was there, obviously a big Panthers fan. And I laughed. I said, you guys are just taking our scraps. Look at Thielen. He's as old as Santa Claus now in NFL years. And man, I've never heard a Panthers fan so quick to defend Adam Thielen. He was like, he was our best receiver last year. So I know. I was like, I can't believe you paid him that much. That's cool,
Right.
though. I love the guy. I can't wait for him to come back and retire as a Viking. But that's just to echo your point. I think they did the right moves with Thielen and Kendricks. Barr came back on a very small deal with a very small role in the team last year. But you're right, man. There's certainly more needs than just the quarterback. I could name outside of wide receiver, tight end, and maybe safety. I think there's a major need at every one of these positions, and it's going to be tough. And we have a big emptiness now with the release of Alexander Mattison at running back.
Right.
I'm telling you now, I don't have anything against these players that get released. Like obviously Eric Kendricks getting released from the Chargers.
Like you and I know we both wish Alexander Madison the best. I hope he leaves here and finds some success and happiness wherever he goes.
Mhm.
I'm sad it couldn't be here in Minnesota, but that's the way it works sometimes.
Yeah, it's just a business. The negative stuff out of the way first. He didn't have a good season last year. He didn't look
No.
like a running back number one, and I hate it for him because I think he's an A1 human being. I think he's very nice. I think that he handled a lot of terrible situations online with terrible people with such class. And
But the Vikings did kind of a Vikings thing here that they've been doing. I felt that Alexander Madison was in a no-win situation unless he played like Superman. It wasn't
right.
going to be good for him. It's kind of like the Marcus Davenport signing, giving him that much money. Unless Marcus Davenport came here and played great, there was no way he was going to make that contract worthwhile. And then, the next year you'd have to pay him even more. What kind of a prove-it contract is $13 million? I mean, it's a good thing that Madison is only like, 2 years, $7 million? They didn't invest a ton of money in him, which is kind of smart, but I think they were hopeful that he could do a little bit more, and then to have the season that he had be so disappointing. And now the general manager and coach are both talking very highly about Ty Chandler, saying that they want to see more from him. And it was nice to see some production from him this season. But it's a situation where I don't know if I would feel very comfortable with him as any kind of like one. Ty Chandler is part of a committee? Sure.
Yes.
Ty Chandler is a backup? Sure. Ty Chandler is running back number one? No thanks.
And I feel the same way about Cam Akers. I'd love to have him back on the team, but I don't want him to be the feature. There's got to be the great thing that happened 2 seasons ago with the 13 wins and all that is when you have Dalvin Cook and Alexander Madison, you have a great 1-2, and they had completely different styles, and you need that on the team for a little change up.
Do you remember Jerick McKinnon and Matt Asiata?
Hey, surprisingly good year. Matt Asiata was your bowling ball, and Jerick McKinnon was the shifty, quick back. And I love it. It's kind of the same thing with Cook and Madison in their respect a couple of years later. Agreed. But you have to have a clear talent. Whatever they do, whoever your running back number one is, they have to have a clear, definitive strength above the others in the room, and that's what you're going to lean on. And then when you need a change of pace and you need a shifty guy, whatever. I'm okay with the Vikings doing a running back committee, but you have to have a clear and large, like, hey, this is a running back number one.
I gotta take
He
a quick
would,
break. I'll be right back.
yeah, go ahead. Shifting off of, this season with Alexander Madison, like we said, there's no uh, negative energy, no negative attitude. We mean no disrespect from him. Kind of saw the writing on the wall when you only have 700 rushing yards and no touchdowns on the ground. It's not going to be good. But I think that, like Adam said, this was the Vikings doing this to themselves and taking a gamble, and it didn't work out. And just as Adam mentioned, it didn't work out with Alexander Madison. Didn't work out with Marcus Davenport either. So what are you going to do there? That's the risk that you take. And unfortunately, it didn't work out. But we wish him the best. I know Alexander Madison, at least. I don't know about Marcus Davenport. His days might be over. But I know Alexander Madison will find another job. He's just a great, outstanding human and positive energy guy. And he was always fun to listen to mic'd up, and wish him well wherever he ends up next.
Yeah, Madison will find a role somewhere. It won't be a starting role, but he will get picked up, and he will be a player that's a candidate to get some time in the backfield wherever he goes. I don't see him disappearing or anything like that. He's a player that can find production, but was just put in a role that was not going to work out for him.
Sure. I think depending on what happens in New York, if they decide to go a different route with the Giants and Saquon can't agree on something, that would be a place he could go and be a number two, depending on who they bring in. There will be openings for him on other teams to fill in. So best of luck to Alexander Madison, man. We wish you the best. He's only a $1.25 million cap hit this year, so that's nothing in NFL money.
Right.
So this was a smart move financially. This definitely means I would say that Vikings will probably draft a running back in round 3 or 4.
Again, Vikings fans, Saquon Barkley is not going to come here and take a small paycheck to come play for Minnesota.
Oh, God.
And I know it's dreaming, but it's not realistic in any way.
I don't want Saquon Barkley on the team just because the injuries scare me. Because once he's out, then you're back to square one. And then the money's going where? When it's, availability is your best ability. So I hope that he stays in New York. I know he wants to be a Giant. I think he helps the Giants be a lot better. But
I wrote an article over the Viking Age that kind of suggested that I'd like to see the Vikings go after Gus Edwards.
Yeah, I wouldn't hate that at all.
He's cheaper. He's productive. I just don't really see that much of a downside with him. He's a running back I'm really interested to see if the Vikings pursue, maybe not sign, but at least look at.
Right. Yeah, I think there could be a free agent addition in the running back room. I definitely think they should. I don't know if they will, but I think they should look for one in the draft. If one fits the scheme and the availability is there as far as value, it couldn't hurt. But the running back room is a little bit more barren today because Alexander Madison is gone. Man, I'm trying to look at my notes here. We talked about Kirk and Atlanta. There are rumors floating around. This comes from Mike Florio, who's pretty he's got sources in the building and a couple other places. If they're reporting on it, that at least means there's talk about it. We don't know the percentage of truth that these talks hold, but that means that the conversations have been had. Like the Vikings saying, we haven't even discussed the thought of trading Justin Jefferson. I believe that. But when multiple news outlets are saying, damn, dude, I heard Kirk might be going to Atlanta. I heard Atlanta is prioritizing him over Justin Fields, and they want to go get him. Okay. And like we were saying earlier, I didn't get to finish this point, but with the NFC South, I don't think the Panthers are going to be good again this year. The Saints don't really scare me. They're pretty average.
Yeah.
You could fight for a wild card spot in Atlanta through that division. And they've got some pieces. They got rid of the coach. They got a new coach, which I really like. They've got a good running back. They've got a big tight end who needs to prove himself. They've got a good wide receiver there. The defense was pretty good. I think Kirk would be fine in Atlanta. We'll see what happens there.
Better landing spots for him. Atlanta has a lot of offensive weapons that they haven't been able to even use. So
right.
You can see what they can do. Can we squash anything having to do with Trey Lance for a moment?
Dude, I want to go on a tirade about this. Go ahead. Floor is yours.
Because I am absolutely tired of these quarterbacks that just have no reason to be in the discussion to be Minnesota coming up. Don't even talk about Trey Lance coming in starting for Minnesota. I don't. I can't. I can never remember his name. I have to Google it every time. But Malik Willis. Yeah, Malik Willis ain't coming to Minnesota to be the starter. Just kind of relax on some of that stuff and look at players that have the potential or at least a former starting status before you think about who's going to start for Minnesota.
So Trey Lance got traded to the Cowboys this past season, correct? Before the trade deadline?
Yeah.
So that means the year before, Brock Purdy was there. Yeah, I want you guys to realize this is what we're talking about. This is how far it is, okay? And here's a stat that I agree with Colin Cowherd on, and I hate the more the older I get, the things that I like that he says. But if it makes sense, I'm going to agree with it every time. You want to get a guy on your team when you draft them who has college experience. I would not have hated last year if they went after Anthony Richardson because the ceiling is outer space. Now, the floor may be very bad, but if you hit, you have like a Josh Allen type or a Cam Newton type of quarterback, and I'm like, hell yeah, let's go for it, right? But the big question mark with Anthony Richardson last year was he started like 13 games. What's he going to look like in the NFL? The thing with Trey Lance was the same thing. He only had like 30 games between high school and college. And then you're asking the kid to come into the NFL. That was one of the biggest whiff draft picks of a quarterback ever by San Francisco. And here's my point to Viking fans. I want to piggyback on what you're saying, Adam. If he can't beat out Brock Purdy, the 7th round pick, Mr. Irrelevant, on a team with those weapons, what do you think he's going to do? He's buried on the depth chart in Dallas. You think he's going to come here and beat Joe Montana? You guys are crazy. Why do Viking fans have an obsession with going after quarterbacks who are going to do absolutely terrible? They can't even win a starting job where they're at now, and you want them to come here and try to be better?
Right.
Make it make sense to me. And to end the tire, let's just name them. I don't want Justin Fields. I don't want it. Because if you get Justin Fields, he could be really good. Then you got to pay him. I don't want to pay him.
Right.
I want to take a rookie and see if we can do it that way and try to do the Cincinnati Bengals thing where there's a star wide receiver and there's this defensive guy, blah, 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 and it's on a rookie contract before you have to pay him.
Now, I love Justin Fields' legs, but I want to pay a quarterback based on his arm talent. That's what I want.
Yes, and to your point, great Justin Fields stats. Sorry to hate on you, bro, because I do like you, and I know the Vikings were looking at drafting you. He had the most turnovers in the fourth quarter last year of any quarterback that played. You can't do that. You can't.
No.
And one of my best buddies in the entire world, diehard Chicago Bears fan, he goes, you can't trust him to make the decision. He goes, you can see the wide open play that is there for him to take, and he won't make it. That to me screams that he's not confident in himself. And you can't have a guy who's playing nervous or not confident out there. But Justin Fields, don't want him. Don't want Gardner Minshew. Baker's going to go to Tampa Bay. We assume Kirk is going to go to Atlanta, or at least I do for now. That's a hot thing today. It could be completely different tomorrow.
Right.
Who else is out there?
You really want Tannehill? Get him.
Ryan Tannehill, absolutely don't want. I don't know what these reclamation quarterbacks, Trey Lance, we're obviously talking about. I don't want him. I don't know why you want to take on a project quarterback. If you're going to do it, take it with a young guy. I don't want Jimmy G. No, I'm good.
But he's so handsome.
He is handsome as shit. He also won't be available to play until week 3 this year. So he got busted for pets. So you know what? That sounds like a lot. It's just not the direction I think the Vikings should go in. You know what I mean? I think that says a lot.
What do you think of when J.J. McCarthy was? That's what NFL wide receiver would you like to throw to? It was instant. Justin Jefferson. Instant.
It depends. Are you going to be picked at 27 or 11? If you're picked at 27, come on over, bro. Because you know me, Adam. And for you guys that listen to this later or maybe listen now, I don't consider wins to be a quarterback stat on a team sport. But he does have a lot of winning in his pedigree. He has like 3 losses, I think, in his high school and college careers.
Did you notice that on his throwing at the combine? A majority, I'd say 90% of his throws went right. He avoided throwing to his left.
I didn't see that. I know that some people were hung up on the fact that there were some incompletions, and I was like, if you're worried about incompletions to wide receivers that he doesn't know, with no other players around, I can't help you.
I mean, if you have a quarterback that has that kind of a tendency, that really could hurt a lot. Or if he's not comfortable throwing to the left side of the field, that's not good at all. Now, I'm not discounting the good throws that he made at the combine because he looked good, but I would have liked to have seen a more diverse amount of throws as far as where on the field he was throwing.
Yep. That makes me think of going back to my very limited scouting. I put in air quotes. I'm not a scout, guys. Watching Drake May today, man, that dude loves to throw outside the numbers. If he found his way on this team, Justin Jefferson would be very happy because the ball would be going to him early and often. And it would be 50-50 balls, which I like. I think Justin Jefferson will come down majority of the time with those. But, man, he likes to throw outside the number and throw the ball deep. That's the biggest question with McCarthy. And I hate that people say, and when I say people, not intelligent.
The main worry I have about McCarthy is that he's coming from a run team.
Yeah.
And that is the primary focus of Michigan, was that they were a running team. And McCarthy, although he did excel, it's because he was leaning off the exact terror of Michigan running the ball right up your gut. And those stacked boxes and those defenses playing the run constantly. I hate to say this, but Minnesota, you're not scaring anyone in the run.
Not right now, you're not. Maybe that changes. Maybe they get a dynamic player somewhere. But right now, you're exactly right, Adam. And to your point, let's emphasize what you're saying. Let's go even further and exaggerate it. Michigan has the most people represented at the Combine this year. There will be a ton of Wolverines going into the NFL this year. Jim Harbaugh pounded the table and said, look, I have a ton of great players. You can't hold things like that against McCarthy. Like when they choose, I think it's the Penn State game they always reference, when they choose in the second half to never throw the ball, it's not because he sucks. It's because they're very, very good at that. And they're like, beat us this way. We don't think you can. And they were undefeated last year, so they were right. you can't beat
When Johnny Manziel was drafted, one of the first things I said was, he's got the most talented offensive line I've ever seen. He's got wide receivers that are going to be fantastic in the NFL. I said, this kid has to prove that he is good. He has proven that he can be good with that team. Right. He's got to prove that he is good.
100% agree. Hey, there we go. What's up, Wes? Talisi Fuaga, offensive tackle from Oregon State, was very impressive. Definitely worth a look if we don't go for a quarterback. So I'm not worried about Darisaw. Are you saying that you want to replace Brian O'Neill? Because I'm good with keeping Brian O'Neill for a little while.
I have not looked into him. Is he what are we looking at? Like a late round swing tackle, or is he a top prospect, or what are we looking at? Because I'm not too familiar with him.
Let's read his scouting report real quick. He's from Oregon State, and this is great. Oh wow, 5.13 is 40 time. Good Lord. So he is the number 4 ranked offensive tackle, just ahead of them. Obviously, Joe Alt, we talked about.
Right.
Fashanu from Penn State and J.C. Latham from Alabama. But he has an 88.9 grade, Talisi Fuaga. So he'll probably go in the first round, I would guess. I don't think they need an offensive tackle at the moment. That's the only place I feel comfortable with.
Either tackle we have right now. I don't think you can move either of them into guard.
No, I think Brian O'Neill's earned the right to stay at right tackle. Christian Darisaw.
With what you're paying O'Neill, you kind of got to keep him at right tackle too. Right. And he is getting paid a lot of money.
And to your point, Adam, and not to like discredit your West, I understand looking at every prospect, but the tackles are the only ones I feel damn sure about on the line. Everything in the middle is where I have the concern. So I don't think offensive tackle now. I don't see a guard being worthy of the 11th pick or a center, but that makes a little more sense because we have bookend tackles right now, and they're still both like neither one of Christian Darisaw is not even in his prime yet, and Brian O'Neill's in his prime. I'm fine with both of them, so I don't know.
Now I am going to say, kind of boldly and confidently, if Minnesota does not take a quarterback at 11, it is going to be an edge rusher. I'm pretty confident in that.
we talked about it earlier too. You know, we'll find out where Daniil Hunter wants to go here in a couple weeks. He's obviously the premier edge rusher on the team right now, or at least from last season. He'll be a
Right.
free agent, but if he's gone, I think you have to go edge rusher. You don't have to take a quarterback there as far as
I'd have been okay with trying DJ Wanham, but with him being a free agent too, he's going to get a nice hefty deal somewhere based on his potential.
he's gonna be good for wherever he plays too. He's very underrated, and for what he is as a number two edge rusher for a team, he's damn good at his job. I
Oh, yeah.
really enjoyed DJ Wanham under the year, underrated player for us. But yeah, you're right. Especially one of those two, I believe, definitely are leaving, if not both.
And I like Patrick Jones, but I'm not ready to pencil him in as a starter.
He's not a number one edge rusher. There's no way. Nope. Yeah, right now I think with the 38 million, I think ish cap they figure out, you know, however they need to do it to get Justin Jefferson signed, but they also need to really
Get a starting left guard.
A left guard would be great. I was going to lean more towards the Christian Wilkinson thing. Like, hey, you could say you're going to go get a big defensive tackle and have him on a rookie deal. That's fine. Or you could go get one of Brian Flores' favorite players from a team who just left a year ago.
We also need another interior linebacker.
That's a good point.
I mean, this team has holes, and we can't just laser focus on the ones that are flashy.
Right.
They all need to be filled.
That's what she said. I was so going to make an awful pun there. But, no, the Vikings do have other need. You know, the quarterbacks will always get the love and attention. But this team, at different levels, they need help everywhere. So it'll be interesting. The good thing that we can be excited about as fans, and I said this on the other show a week or two ago, the Vikings have 9 picks. They do have money to move around. So they have the ability to make some moves. The crappy part about right now being early March is nothing's going to happen until the league year gets ready. But, you know, we've already seen it started today. There are players getting tagged, and that's going to certainly affect how some teams go with their draft, or at least free agency is going to go. But once the league year starts and we get closer to April, we're going to see. My hope is there's not an emotional pick on the day of the draft where the Vikings have to scurry and pick. If they're going to make a pick and they know they like a guy after these pro days, I think you call Washington or you call New England and you try your best to just say, hey, look, we have a player we want. What's your price? Just go do it.
Now, I also think Minnesota is not done freeing up salary cap space. We're going to hear something eventually. I don't know what it's going to be, but I hope it's not a cut because I want him to stay in Minnesota. I love Harrison Smith, but they can't pay him what they're paying him. They can't. And I'm out on Dean Lowry. If Dean Lowry wants to stay in Minnesota, he has got to do something. I don't know what.
Play for a different team. I don't need him on the team. We saw what we needed to see, and it wasn't good. Much like Marcus Davenport. Hey, man, I can't have you be good for one half of football in 17 games. That's not going to cut it. So a cut pre-June 1st for Harrison Smith. Man, that's a lot.
Yeah, it hurts.
So I don't know, on Over the Cap, there's 2 different red columns here for dead money and cap savings. Okay, so the dead money should be on the left. The cap savings should be on the right. So you would have a hit of almost $8 million, but you would save 11. Now, that is significant. That is very significant. Like Kirk Cousins, guaranteed $28.5 million no matter what. If we cut him, we don't save any money at all if we cut him.
Yeah, if he walks, it's 28 no matter what.
But Harrison Smith costing 8 but getting 11 back, I can appreciate that.
I mean, and it does kind of open up a need at safety because we don't know what they've got planned for his replacement. Minnesota did draft to replace the future at safety, but we don't know if Sean is anywhere near ready to do anything. And Metellus, I don't see him stepping back into a safety role. I think Metellus is going to keep doing Metellus stuff.
That's a good point. I would like to see what we have in Lewis Sean, and maybe that is what eventually will happen. Maybe they will save money with Harrison Smith being gone, let Lewis Sean finally see if he can earn his keep. And then you could also go get a guy like, who's the guy that we got? He was from Dallas, and then he went to Carolina. He was on the team for 1 year. He was a decent fill-in at safety. What the hell was his name? That's who I'm thinking of. Go get a guy on that caliber who can just jump in and be all right.
You don't need to go and chase the top free agents and pay them a ton of money. You don't need to do that. But while we're talking about players that might be cap casualties, can we stop saying that Minnesota might cut Byron Murphy? Because I don't see that as being any kind of realistic option for the Vikings defense. You don't take the only veteran cornerback that you got and let him go. And he was pretty good last year.
He was fine. I loved everything that he did. I want him back. It costs you 5.5 to cut him. You get 5.3 back, so you don't make or break any money there. It makes no sense.
You don't make enough in savings to do it.
That's who I was thinking of. Xavier Woods played for the team 1 year, and he was fine while he was here. Go get a guy like that, and then see what you haven't seen, if that's what it is. That's a money move.
But your defense is at the point where right now, if you can't bulk up your pass rush, you've got to bulk up your secondary. It's got to be one of the two. And right now, Minnesota's got to decide which one it's going to be. I hope it's bulking up edge rushers because that, to me, makes things a lot easier on your secondary. So I don't know how we're going to bulk up on edge rushers, but I hope that is something that is a top priority right now.
You're right, Adam. It's got to be. And with the scheme that they're doing, if they do what they did last year where they blitz, damn near half the time, you got to have good rushers to do that. It makes no sense to get C-plus guys in there to do that kind of thing. So I don't know. I don't like having I don't want to call it depleted, but an underwhelming, secondary. But if that's what the price pit is to go get,
you can get away with Anderson Dejo if you've got Jared Allen.
Yeah, of course. And to your point, you draft Jared Verse from Florida State. You sign Christian Wilkins, and then you got Lewis Seen stepping in, and there's an Xavier Woods type in the back there. I'm fine with that. I'm totally fine with that. But you've got to build it first. And, just as the defense is called, the defensive backs, they're the back end of the defense. You got to start with that front wall and make it something special. I totally agree with you there. So they've got some moves to make.
Emphasis at all is being placed on how Minnesota has to rebuild this defense. I get that offense is exciting and flashy and everything, but it's great that Jordan Addison came out and had a fantastic rookie year. He scored 10 touchdowns, did his thing, and I'm happy to see what he can do in year 2 if Justin Jefferson can stay healthy and they can be a dynamic duo for whatever quarterback is back there. It's exciting, but you can't. We're in a league where you can't give up as many points as a lot of these teams have been that just can't get their defense going. You've got to have that balance between the two. I get that it's an offensive league and scoring points is how you win games these days, but I mean, you can't forget about what gets you to the dance, and that is a great offense to go with a solid defense. You can't have a number 30 ranked defense and just store based on trying to score 40 points a game when you don't have an established quarterback, a left guard, any wide receiver 3 that you can trust, a healthy tight end. What are we doing right now with that? Where are we?
And I know the season, for the way it started and the way it ended on defense, you had about 5 games total there where it was not fun.
No.
But for the majority, 2/3 of the season, the defense was pretty good, considering that you're playing with backup quarterbacks for at least half that stretch, and Justin Jefferson was out for like 8 games. The defense held its own, and I commend Brian Flores because looking at the objective side of what happened last year versus the emotional, well, they look like shit at the end of the year. Yeah. Why did they look like shit, though? You can make the statement, but I just want you to answer what you said and give the reason.
You don't win a 3-0 game with terrible defense.
Not only that, look at the people that he had to use for this last year. It literally was, and I hate saying this because I don't want to sound disrespectful to the players, but compared to nailing it in a draft and signing, top-tier free agents, they were doing some bargain shopping last year.
Yeah.
And he did the best that he could with what he had. And that's why number one, the consistency of, much like Kirk Cousins would say every year, like, I'm glad I'm not changing offensive coordinators again. I'm glad we're not changing defensive coordinators again for the 3rd year in a row. I'd like to see what he can do. They're familiar. And the great thing about Brian Flores, and you remember we talked about that one game where Kevin O'Connell, we kind of yelled at him as fans. We're like,
yeah,
Flores is over here telling you what to do. He has head coach experience. The dude, he knows what to do. So I'm glad he's coming back. I hope that they do a bulk of this year's draft with defensive players.
Yeah.
I think that's where it needs to be. But that's it. Like I said earlier, let me
Hitting on
piggyback on
Ivan
this.
Pace as an undrafted free agent last year was big.
Oh, absolutely. And we say Pro Football Focus isn't the best. Like looking at the stats and everything, but he was like the highest graded linebacker in college football. Like just because he went to a D2 school, people were kind of scared of that. It's like, definitely should have been drafted. Just like if we have to go down this road, Adam Thielen should have been drafted. That was kind of stupid that he had to pay to go to a combine. John Randall, for all things when it was said and done, should have been drafted.
Yep.
It's dumb that had to happen. But going back to the point, man, to kind of echo what I was saying earlier, you've got a lot of things to be excited for because the Vikings have money, they have draft picks. We just have to have this waiting period here for about 3 weeks. And once the wheels start turning, in 3 weeks from now, we'll be 1 month out from the draft. The buzz around it's going to be crazy. There will be free agent news and signings elsewhere and signings here, blah, blah, blah. But I think the Vikings will be so active this year in a healthy way. I don't think they're going to make big splashes, but I think they have enough wiggle room now. And the good thing is, we've talked about, Adam, you and I and Kyle on the show, they slowly started to back away from what was handcuffing them before, and they're going to have more freedom as the years go on with these smart financial moves that they're doing. So I think they're trending in the right direction. Just don't get frustrated if you don't see any headlines yet that, well, they haven't signed this person or they didn't cut this person yet. It's coming.
Now we are inching very close. We have one more show in between the start of free agency, which is March 16th.
Yep.
And the tampering period starts on the 14th, so we're going to start hearing stuff, trickling in by then. But it's going to be interesting because these Minnesota Vikings news, Minnesota has a lot of free agents leaving, and we're going to hear whether or not a lot of those players are going to find new homes very quickly.
And like you said, Adam, it starts, the tampering period is in 9 days. 2 days after that, it starts. That's 2 weeks from now. We'll have one more episode in between now and then free agency is going to be
wild.
It's going to be in the full effect, and it's going to be fun. And if we don't have a lot of Viking news, at least we can project, because it's fun to talk about the other teams in the league and see what was a great decision, what was a steal. Maybe that was kind of dumb, maybe this, that. But
or that guy would have been real good in Minnesota.
Yeah, we'll probably say that a couple times. But it's exciting, basically 2 weeks away. So we're not that far off. And
no.
I know for us here, this has nothing to do with football, but it just makes me excited because of the weather and the time of year. This Sunday is daylight savings time, I was told. So we're getting closer to spring.
I've only got little small chunks of snow in my yard. That everything else is pretty much melted already. It feels like spring. I had a doctor's appointment today, and I went and I wore shorts. It was 50 degrees. I wore shorts.
Yeah, it was in the 60s today. I went to my chiropractor appointment and my workout stuff, and it feels wonderful outside. It was 70 degrees this weekend.
Wow.
Here. Yeah. Excited, man. Spring is coming soon. New league year is going to start, and the draft is always fun. And the cool thing about this year's draft, we'll live stream it like we always do, and we'll be here on the show. But we don't have to wait 2.5 hours this year. Pick 11 will come relatively quick. So
imagine what it's like for Detroit Lions fans. They're used to picking at the top of the draft. Now they actually have to stay up and drink some coffee to get to the end.
That's so funny. Well, I think that about does it for all the news. We covered some of the prospects. The combine was cool. The one thing that I'll say to end basically all of our coverage or whatever for today is I appreciate, and you have to take into effect these players now, like Caleb Williams, for better or for worse for all.
So I just went on Microsoft Bing, which I don't know why I'm on Bing, but I typed in Vikings news, and I wanted to see if there's any quick hits that I missed. Guess what the first thing that comes up is?
I don't know.
Sports Illustrated. Does Russell Wilson to the Vikings make any sense?
Oh, my God. Make it stop. I don't want him anywhere near this team. So
yeah, that's the top response right there.
Talking about the combine and see, some of the older generation are upset with guys like Caleb Williams and I think he's a prima donna. He didn't want to throw, blah, blah, blah. Here's my question to counter, and I do this as a point to be kind of snarky and rude. What do you need to see with no defense coming at him on scripted throws, not in pads, that you can't just go watch film yourself? If you don't know how to watch football and look for certain things, just say that. But to say that he's entitled, it's not it. You can only do in life what you're given and under circumstances and rules in which how you play. This is the very first class that is eligible, Adam, from the NIL era. So these guys have been in 2 years. They've had money. They're millionaires in college. And the thing that makes me the most mad, because I've seen a couple of the old boomers be like, "Oh, he's going to be a cancer. He's going to." Some people are dumb enough to type this out on Facebook comments, and it made me laugh out loud. They're like, "He's going to keep this up. He's not going to get drafted." Sir, you are dumber than a fucking rock. He's going number one overall, and there's absolutely no chance that he falls. Anyway, he's going number one. He's been the top quarterback the last 2 years. It is what it is. But the thing that I laugh at is, where was this energy? Maybe you didn't have Facebook at this time, but where was this energy when Dion was saying this to the New York Jets? Like, what are you picking at number 9? I ain't going to be there. Don't worry about it. Who cares?
Well, let's finish up. I want to finish up talking about Kirk Cousins a little bit more because I've been seeing some ridiculous stuff, and I want to see your opinion on it. Recently, I saw a high-profile, we'll say, radio station slash Vikings blog website, maybe we'll say.
Okay.
And they were saying that the Vikings have to stop being tricked and bamboozled by Kirk Cousins. Where did the Vikings get bamboozled? Just because they were paying him?
Yeah, who put the gun to the general manager's head and made him do that?
And has Kirk Cousins been bad that it feels like that he was like stealing money? I don't think he's been bad at all.
You know, Adam, I've said this in so many words, and I'll say it again. And I make it a point to be snarky and condescending when I say stuff like this, in the tone and the manner in which I say it. If you're not smart, then I can't help you. You have to
Is
be
there a way to
intelligent.
cope with them leaving, like finding flaws, or what is it?
No, I don't think that they're coping for him leaving. I think they didn't want him here at all, but they only target him, and they don't like. I said this earlier. I forget what it was about, but I said you're lacking. Oh, it was Lamar Jackson's MVP numbers this year, and then they compared him to Tyrod Taylor or EJ Manuel or something like that.
Yeah.
And I said, here's the thing you're lacking with this post: common sense and context. All of these quarterbacks get paid millions of dollars. And let's be real. I think all would agree on this. Aaron Rodgers, by far and large, is better overall in his career. He was a better talent, better arm talent, better mobility than Kirk Cousins was. I don't think they're worlds apart, like a lot of people might say, but I do think he was a level or two above Kirk. But let's be real. If you're going to do that stupid quarterback wins thing, they paid Aaron Rodgers a lot of money to choke in the playoffs a lot. I don't like that logic at all because it's a team sport. But if you're going to give Kirk that energy, give it to Aaron Rodgers. Give it to Josh Allen. Josh Allen's the latest choke artist. He can't beat Mahomes. It's all his fault, right? So when people say that about Kirk, I just laugh because I'm like, oh, he fleeced them for all this money. No, he got paid what the position gets paid. The position is the most important in the league, so they're going to get paid more. How are you missing this for 31 other teams? But because it's your team, you're like, he's the outlier. He's bad. Well, where's this energy for Dak Prescott? Do you think Dak is much better than Kirk? Because he doesn't win playoff games. Like, he'll win you 12 regular season games every year, but they don't win in the playoffs. Is it his fault?
I get weird about seeing, like, it's like, when your friend is going to break up with this girl or, whatever, and you start, like, talking a little bit smack because you know they're going to break up. It's like, you wouldn't say that if they were going to stay together.
100%. I think people will, and I've said this before, and this is a generic statement, but I firmly believe this in every bone in my body. I think the Vikings fan base is one of the most toxic and one of the most ungrateful fan bases. And I understand we all want to watch this team have a winning season where they win a championship at the end of the year. I want that more than anything in my sports fandom life. But I truly feel like even if they got what they wanted, they would still complain.
Yeah.
It's always, and the thing is with Kirk Cousins, my God, you have all the drama with Deshaun Watson and how much of a piece of crap he is off the field. You've got Mahomes, who's a winner, but man, he's got some distractions around him. His
Oh
dad,
yeah.
his wife, his brother. You've got all these things around certain players everywhere, and you get a guy who's a genuine family man. I'm not saying you should believe in God or you should follow his religion, but I like that he
Right.
is a religious person who has good moral values.
I just like that he seems like a good man.
He's a good human, and people just want to tear him down for some reason. And like, listen, am I happy with how the tenure went this year? No, we didn't win as many games as I wanted and thought we should have. But I don't put all the blame on him. And I certainly am not going to attack his character or be like, he doesn't deserve to make money. Do you know how much money the NFL makes? They make billions of dollars. Of course he needs to get paid. That
Good
would be
on Kirk for
criminal.
getting paid what he could. That's the way I feel. I'm not going to look down on someone for getting paid what they can. Like if my buddy came up to me and said, I work at Burger King and I got a raise and I'm making $17, I'm not going to go, $17 is too much to make fries and Whoppers. I'm not going
Right.
to do that.
And you know, the other thing too, this is little stuff when you're in Vikings Twitter like you and I are. And some of you guys listening may not know stuff like this, but I'm just a nerd and I literally consume sports media. When I wake up in the morning, I feed my dogs, I go take a shower, I get on YouTube and I watch Rich Eisen, Colin Cowherd, Colin Cowherd's partner on the network. I consume sports media all day. I want to know what's going on. And now that we have access to it, I listen to it a lot. And the thing that I love about Kirk, and I forget who said this, but they know him and know about his camp or whatever. You know, like with the rehab stuff, you know, Kirk's made like almost $200 million in his career with NFL money and endorsements. So he has money for generations. But he's still kind of a cheapskate. You know, he drove that van forever. He still got it, but he's got like a decent home. He doesn't have a mansion or whatever. He bought the things that the team recommended for him to rehab and to make his his Achilles better.
Yeah.
And he did these things, and I'm thinking, the dude is 36 years old, and he still wants to get better every year. That says a lot when you buy the machine to make you better for your job. How many people like you and I get a suggestion from work? They're like, hey, you should buy this book to study for our test, or you should buy this vest because, you know, we can. I'd be like, fuck you, I'm not buying that. And now I know he has a lot more income and resources than we do, but it's the little things like that you don't get, that don't get recognition, where I'm like, no, this dude loves football. He just wants to get better and win. And we'll never hear about that because everybody just wants to, like, I guess it's easy to tear him down.
I mean, I don't like paying Kirk Cousins for the years he's not here, but I'm not going to hold any of it against, pushing his contract down the road when people asked him to. I'm not going to hold that against him at all.
That's the other part of your story earlier about, well, he fleeced him. No, the Vikings knew what they were doing, and that's a consequence of your actions when you sign something like that. They negotiated this. This isn't the first time that any NFL team has seen this, much less the Vikings. They're like, we didn't know that he would be getting paid after he left. Yes, you did. You have a guy whose specific job is to tell you this. So I don't know. I'm with you, man. I don't understand the hate. I don't have any ill will towards him. I started out when he came here in 2018 with a lot of like despair and negativity. But the more I've seen of him, the more I respect him. And I'd love to take a picture with him, shake his hand, and say, like, hey, man, thanks for the stuff that you did here. I think you got treated unfairly.
I'm having trouble thinking of former Vikings that I didn't want to see succeed or that I wasn't happy for. Yeah. I guess I'm just not that kind of guy.
I'm not going to tear somebody down on something like that. I think that's arbitrary stuff to be upset about. I don't think there's a rhyme or reason for that.
That, and I want people to succeed.
Yeah,
besides
of course.
That person on the game shows, the morning game shows. If you're on The Price is Right and you are not playing well, I'm going to boo you.
You heard it here first. Get your Price is Right takes from Adam Carlson from Perfect People Podcast. Man, that was the best stuff in our era of growing up. When I got to stay out of school or I was sick, big bowl of chicken noodle soup with some saltine crackers and a Coke.
It ain't the same as Drew Carey.
No, it's not.
Bob was the man.
Bob was the man, and I wish Bob was still here hosting it, and I also wish that Drew Carey was still hosting. Whose line is it anyways?
Oh, yeah.
That's what I'll always remember them for.
But I want to thank those who joined us in chat, and we'll be back next week to talk more Vikings football. Again, it'll be kind of a slower show because we don't have that free agency starting up quite yet, but I'm sure we'll have some Vikings news to talk about. You can check out my work over on the Viking Age. I've been making articles about what free agents could play in Minnesota, how they could replace Alexander Madison. I've done a mock draft. There's lots of good stuff over there to take a look at.
Very
And
nice.
every time you click on one of my articles, it helps to fill my wallet up a little bit and helps fill my cat's food dish. So I appreciate all that. You can also check me out on social media anywhere you are at MN Viking Zombie. Unless Facebook and Instagram are down, you can talk to me on there too.
I went to work super early today. Like I got there at like 3, and I came home immediately and took a nap. So I had no idea that the internet was down today. So I heard this, and I was like, I got up and I didn't see any changes. I was like, what is everybody talking about? So that's hilarious. I didn't know that was happening today. Kyle West was not here today. He actually texted us during the show. I guess he had a meeting, and it must have wore him out because he's like 3/4 of the way in the show. He's like, I just woke up. So shout out to Kyle West. We'll see you next week, man. Check his stuff out. I think he's on Blue Sky, maybe on Twitter sometimes. Not doing the social media as much, but Vaguely Square on Blue Sky. You can also check out his photography work at KyleWest84.picfair.com. He's a great photographer. Much like Adam is a phenomenal writer, Kyle is a great photographer. You should support him that way if you can. If you want to follow me on Instagram, I'm most active there. I'm an NC Dog Dude, like North Carolina Dog Dude, or Twitter, X, whatever you call. I'll be a sarcastic smartass on there about mixed martial arts and the Vikings.
Now, what you guys should do is you should go on X or Twitter or whatever you call it. You should type in at NC Dog Dude, put a space, and then remind Kyle Smith that we need to do some horror movie reviews.
Yes, we do. I 100% agree. And I was looking this weekend actually with my son, and I look for any kind of kids movies that are out, but I'm looking to see if there's any horror movies. I don't see anything crazy out, so we'll have to pick something from.
There's some great stuff coming to streaming this month.
Perfect.
But we can talk about that another time.
I'm kid free this weekend, so you let me know, especially in the next 2 or 3 days. I should be free. I will gladly watch one. I'd love to get back into that because I need something like that.
All right. On that note, I do want to once again thank everyone for joining us. Thanks people for checking us out. We once again were the #1 sports podcast on Podomatic, which makes us happy, even though we're a smaller show. That I know Podomatic isn't used by a lot of people, but still, it's nice to get that email and see we're #1. That feels good. And we'll be back next week to talk more Vikings football. In the meantime, stay classy, Minnesota.